Perfect, thank you. That's already a picture from a few years ago. I'm glad to see it again. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Ghent. Welcome in this wonderful place. I will take you through the program that we're setting up in 2024 because we're, of course, European Youth Capital this year. We set up a few methods in engaging young people on a local level, in strengthening their voice, in representing even the, or not the strongest voices here in Ghent. And then I'll go a little bit into the program that we set up for building European networks. So let's take you through our goals of our European Youth Capital. It strongly aligns with the European Youth Goals. Engage, empower, and care. You can read, you can see what goes on under these clusters. I think one of the challenges that we are meeting this year is that, I have to stay here because of the mics. This one. Ooh, oh my God. Yeah, okay. Yes, you hear me? Okay, perfect. I think we have been investing a lot into our youth work in free time, but what we are now facing is the challenge of bringing all those partners together, and it is a paradigm shift in thinking, in building networks. It's one thing to start up your own organization on an organizational level. It's another thing to build a network. It's about finding consent with even partners that you don't agree with, in experimenting for a few months and learning from your experiments. And that's what we are doing here in Ghent. We are not pretending and finding the answers. We are experimenting and seeing what goes well and what goes wrong. See if we can create positive impact and see where we can create, or where we create negative impact, and see if we can lower that in the long term. So our EYC program, we've set up an open call. We are dividing 350,000 euro on a local level for young people to set up their own program. You can get up to 10,000 euro for your own project. So this weekend we have our opening weekend. And for example, it's a few young people who take over an old Aldi building in the 19th century belt of Ghent and building their own skate park. It's about public space, taking in space. We have young people who want to challenge or to battle loneliness with students who cook together with grandmas and grandpas and seeing what brings them together. So at this point we have 55 projects. We have another call in March. It's wonderful to see that if you set your structures, or if you make sure that a 16-year-old can fill in your forms, can fill in the files, that is wonderful to see which kind of people reach the point of putting in a project or filing in a project. We have learned from our Alaskan subsidy program, where young people can get up to 3,000 euros. And it's giving a little bit of trust. Not everybody needs to fill in a financial form at the end of their project. We only do a 10% check. So we give some trust to young people. Elections, our big debate, or great debate. We're still debating about which name to choose in English. So it's a participation project for 750 students, so first-time voters, 16 and 17 years old, and overall educational forms, so technical schools, vocational schools, to more theoretical schools, artistic schools. Everybody is included on 6 themes: democracy, climate change, mental well-being, living together in a city, the city of the future, and money. The idea is to set up a program where we reach young people and strengthen them in communicating their signals, their opinions. This is implemented in our youth policy for the next few years. we are setting up a whole campaign from the 25th of April towards the European elections in public space to communicate all those opinions as well and make them visible in public space here in Ghent. Our project, or the team of European Youth Capital, is supporting these young people, or this project, to make it visible in public space. So 25th of April, if you're still dying to come, you're welcome. It's in the morning, we'll hold debating between young people. In the afternoon, it's a debate with all the chairmen of the Flemish political parties. We give a coaching to 10 individual young people to take the word, to take the mic during the debate. Interesting as well, we see that there's like a discrepancy between musea, who are a little bit complaining that they're not reaching young people anymore, and then on the other side, young people complaining that the doors of musea are not open enough for them. So I think there's a chance to bring those two groups together and to think about cultural creation, young communication from cultural institutions, and moreover, more participation in cultural institutions. Is one thing that young people are your public, it's another thing that young people are deciding in your board where the money goes to. I think that's very important. For example, EYC has a board of young people as well. They are my boss. And they decide where all the money from the open call goes to. So no one from the city has a vote in it. It's a young people's panel, and they decide where the 350,000 euros go to. We are also aiming to be Capital of Culture 2030. So this is needed to build our bid book for the next 6 years, so that young people are not forgotten in the process, which often happens. Our opening, this is this weekend, so we are in full preparation of that. So we have set up a formal opening, of course, 750 people at 404, but then we've done something, we've held an open call for nightlife collectives, because nightlife is very important in Ghent, the night culture, young people taking up space during the night. We had 85 nightlife collectives who wanted to join the young people's opening. It's on 16th of February. 15 venues, 23 collectives, 1 ticket, and you can visit them all. It's a way of showing that if you build a nightlife policy, it's important to think about the macroeconomic situation of your nightlife policy, but it's also important to think about how you get from organizing your first party to becoming a macroeconomic club or taking up a big cultural role in a city as Ghent. You know, we have Compass Club. It's one of the biggest techno clubs in Belgium. So we are quite proud of our nightlife culture. If you have time, stay during the week or stay during the weekend and have a party with us. Voilà. So 3,500 people, and of course our open call. Asphalt, I think that's very important when it comes to voices and engagement. You can use whatever to start up a method in strengthening the voice of young people. We are not just organizing a party, you know. We are bringing together a nightlife community, strengthening their voice in building that nightlife policy in Ghent. And we are using this festival, this evening, as a method, as a sort of incentive impulse to bring them together. And this is the same. So the International Urban Sports and Cultural Festival is not just a festival, it's a method in bringing the quite divided street community from football in the street, graffiti, parkour, skates, inline skates. They're all different, they all have different identities, different subcultures, bringing them together and building a festival together, strengthening that community. Voilà. So this is a big one in September, 25 visitors per day. We have a international, I think we have the World Championships what was it called again? Chase tag. Yeah, it's a sort of playing tag, but parkour together. It's quite fun. So please visit again in Ghent in September. Communication, a youth media team, very interesting. So we are setting up our media team with 70 students. Where media companies give support to that student. So they are the ones in finding the voices of young people and representing it through podcasts, videos, but maybe through art if it's more subtle or complex issues like poverty or mental well-being, and you don't always want to put a camera in front of somebody's face. And then more interesting, our storytelling platform. So we are gathering 400 voices of young people by the end of 2024 as a way of strengthening the young voices that aren't often heard. So we are working together with youth street work, people working on the street, finding people living on the street, and we are trying to coach them in bringing their story towards policy. It's very important that we do so, and one of our goals. This is something that is going to exist afterwards, after EYC as well. Voila. Then our European dimension. The same issue that I've talked about is those groups that don't have the administrative skills or don't have the financial skills in creating an Erasmus Plus youth file or project. And it's quite an extensive application process. We have acquired an accreditation for Erasmus Plus Youth. It's maybe not new in Europe. I've heard other cities doing it as well, but it's quite new in Belgium and in Flanders. So the quality label, we hold it as a city, and we try to lower the threshold for young people and organizations to set up their own European projects. This point, we have our deadline now is the 1st of March, and we are coaching 15 organizations on a local level in setting up their own projects. It's concerning poverty or social inclusion, or maybe young people who have never set a foot outside of Belgium, to give them the chance to meet that European network. But it needs coaching. It needs a trust between the coachee and the coacher, or the coach. And you need a local approach for that. You need to also know your network and to see with every case to search what are the thresholds that you have to step over together. Voila, this is a long-term thing. We try to implement it in the city for the next decade. And of course, our international conferences, a few, for example, the European Youth Conference on Social Inclusion, part of the presidency in March, very happy to welcome it in Ghent. The International Forum of the European Youth Parliament in April, of course, the COMEM of the European Youth Forum, and our conference on public space in May. Voila, this is the Instagram, Ghent EYC, our website, and if you want to contact us, feel free to send an email to EYC2024@stad.gent. If you see a chance in working together or visiting Ghent or setting up an Erasmus Plus project, feel free to contact me. I wish you a lot of good luck today. And please, please, please take with you the voice that is not heard here today in setting up the structures of tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so, well, thank you so much, Salim, for this presentation. First of all, everyone, please save the dates of these amazing events. We cannot wait to continue collaborating with you. So thank you so much. And after these three speeches, we want to start to try and to open this conference. But as we know, as we do always in ESN, we will start in a more dynamic way. So I invite you all together to join this Slido and to tell me more about what are your expectations for today. And please let me know if it works, which is very important. Thumbs up. Okay, perfect. Very nice. So, I was waiting for this moment. I was waiting for a big word to pop up, and it's inspiration. So, very nice word. Then we have exchange, new forms of mobility, student engagement, meet stakeholders. Meet stakeholders, so you have quite a lot of time also during lunch and during the breaks to try to involve, to talk more also about with the stakeholders. Learn more about Ghent as youth capital. Yes, this is very, very interesting. Concrete ideas for engagement. Meet young Europeans interested in the elections. I think that all the people I see here in front, I'm sure they are interested to the elections. I hope so. Active citizenship. Exchange best practices. ESN survey results. Oh, I see a spoiler here. Get ready for the next presentation. Celebrate achievements. Okay, we'll be also, today we'll talk also about a bit about celebration. Engagement, ideas. Very nice. I see a lot of positivity here in this room, and I'm really happy about it. And I hope that it will keep going also during the whole conference. So during this whole conference, we will try to use this format in order to make it much more dynamic as possible. And also, I invite you even more to try to engage more as much as you can, to talk with the people, and to try to meet as much people as you can, and to exchange best practices as here is mainly highlighted. Okay, so thank you so much for having filled this Slido. I spoil you, it will not be the only slide of today, there will be a bunch of them, but I hope this is very, very interesting also for us as ESN to gather more information about you and for what do you expect for today. So let's continue. And now I invite to the stage another time Rita, which will present us the results, some of the results of the ESN survey. Do you want me to give it a bit? Okay, so the ESN survey is a Europe-wide research project which tackles different topics concerning the mobility. It's been some years we are dealing with the ESN survey. Actually, it's from 2005 that we are continuing this research, and for the first time ever, well, I will not spoil you a lot, but actually we have a bunch of numbers. And for the first time, we'll have also ideas and also gathers also the challenges from not only the students but also from, for example, the full degree students or also the non-mobile students, so also the people who couldn't make it to mobility. And as before in the expectations it was meant removing barriers, I think we'll gather maybe more information also about this topic. So thank you so much, Rita.
Thank you so much, Sara. And I have to admit, I'm a bit nervous because I have one of the creators of the ESN survey here with us today. So I think it's an honor also for me to be here and to present you a bit of the survey results. And actually, I've been presenting some of the graphics here already from some months, but I have to say that the survey team has been working really hard. So I can also present you some more results today and to dig deeper a bit on the new novelties that I have to bring to you regarding the ESN survey. So for the ones that don't know what is the ESN survey about, and I think the majority of here knows, but I just want to be sure that all of you, and after what Sarah told and the fantastic presentation knows, so the ESN survey this time collected 23,000 of answers, and actually we collected 272 participants on mobility in Ghent, and 46 participants that went on Ghent abroad. So actually the average duration of mobility was between 5 to 6 months. So we have been seeing this trend throughout the whole ESN survey. But actually, what is the ESN survey about? The ESN survey about is to listen to international students. And ESN has been listening to international students since 1989, and our goal is to continue to listen to students throughout all our existence. So the goal of ESN is to listen to students, to collect data, and to do policy change throughout all our existence. So I've been starting with the most important topic of today. It's about actually impact on society and also the impact of the mobility experience throughout active citizenship, but also throughout how life changes after a person goes abroad and their sense on their own citizenship. So what we have been seeing with the ESN survey results is that when a person goes abroad, they actually are more international, so they are more citizens of Europe and they are more citizens of the European Union, but they're actually more citizens of their own country. So this is actually one of the extracts of the ESN survey. I can also tell you that the team is been actually now at the moment analyzing one of the questions about when they go abroad, if they are more keen about voting on the next European elections, and I can already spoil that this is true. So we'll also release this data very, very soon in the report that it's coming very, very soon in our website. But there is still much to do, because as I was telling in the opening, apart from the mobile students being more keen to be active citizens, to vote on the European elections, to be also more citizens of the world and to Europe, there are still these students that even though they go abroad, they still face many, many difficulties, but also the ones that don't go abroad, these still local students that don't know what will be impact of being an active citizen on society. But what we are going to see here today is actually the ones that went abroad and the difficulties that they are still facing, and they actually can be even more participants in society if they actually will have more support. And here we're actually disclosing for the first time the results with the Erasmus Student Charter. So for the ones that don't know, this is a mandatory document that universities deliver to the students, and we have been seeing that actually this is not being as successful as we wanted. So as you can see here for the results, there is actually different ways that the universities can deliver this document to the students, and we have been seeing here that actually they receive this, the majority of them actually received the document when they were informed about the Erasmus Plus opportunities, which is great. This is actually the moment that they should receive this document, so the expected moment that they should receive. But there are still many of them that were not informed even about the Erasmus Student Charter, which I can tell you is not expected. But also, there are many issues that students facing when they go abroad. This is the graphic that I've been showing for around 6 months. So this is the most shown graphic from ESN for the last 6 months. And you can see that the three most faced issues for students is sufficient money to cover the cost of living, problems finding accommodation, and problems related with courses. And actually, how did these issues impacted international students? We have been seeing that these issues impacted in the three most following ways. Actually, in the motivation of study, feelings of anxiety and stress, feelings in belonging on the local community. And actually, this is very interesting, because if actually the students have been feeling these feelings of anxiety, feelings of stress, impacting the local community, this actually can impact when they go back home in the way that they actually can participate in activities. For example, participating in the Students' Union, participating in the local Students' Club, participating in initiatives made by the European University Alliances. So let's explore this a bit more. And actually, how this can be correlated with the services from the university. So we actually have been exploring more, because we have been noticing, and this is in the preliminary results of the ESN survey, that the students are less satisfied with the services provided by the universities than they were 2 years ago. And actually, we have been now digging deeper why this is happening. And here you can see that the satisfaction with the service provided by some institutions after the end of the exchange is actually caused mainly by services like involvement in the alumni community and also support linking in the exchange with employment opportunities. So these are the two main causes that are probably linked, but we are still more digging deeper in the causes that can be affecting the results that we are seeing currently in the ESN survey. And actually, our survey is more than a quantitative analysis, also a qualitative analysis, and we asked the students why this is happening, and this is one of the quotes that the students present to us. So we have these open boxes that the students can actually write something and they can present to us, and this is one of the comments that the students write negatively, but of course not everything is bad, and actually the students also write good things about universities, and they actually give their positive feedback, because not everything is bad in the world, and actually students, why they are active citizens is also because they have good and positive experiences in the universities and in mobility. But like I was telling you, this is all connected, and it's all connected because students face difficulties, and one of the difficulties that we are facing at the moment is recognition of grades abroad, and we have been seeing that all the grades are not being recognized, and some part of the students have still facing changes in their learning agreements, as we can see in the graphic abroad. And this is one of the new data that we have to show you today, and probably the last slide that I have to show you is about grades after the mobility experience. So even though that we have been seeing that some of them still never received the results, some of the students actually decreased the grades after their mobility experience, and the majority of them luckily have stayed the same or increased, but still there is this 12% that have decreased their grades after their mobility experience. But so, to finally, I think this is the last slide of the presentation. This is very connected with money and the issue that I was showing you about insufficient money to cover the experience. It's about the timely payment of the grants, and this is not expected. So when the students go abroad, they should receive the money before they go on mobility. And as you can see, even though this is better than it was 2 years before, we are still seeing that students receive part of their money before they go on mobility, and this is very emphasized, especially in southern countries. The countries that are actually receiving the money way before they go abroad is the northern countries that are actually really showing off very good results on this matter. And actually, to set the tone for the next panel that will be presented by Sarah, what we have been seeing, especially regarding by active citizenship, is about participation activities organized by civil society organizations, and we have been seeing that this has been decreasing throughout the last 2 years, so through the last ESN survey, and we have been seeing that students actually have been participating less in activities of civil society organizations. So this actually shows that even though students go abroad, by all the difficulties that they face, maybe they are less interested in participating in civil society organization activities. So this actually sets the tone for the next panel, and this is it for my side, and we hope that the ESN survey results, and we are working hard for that, are released very, very soon. We are now actually working hard on the comparisons between digital mobility, so understanding actually why these problems are being faced by the students, and we hope that we can release the survey results very soon, and they will be on your table and your desk for your analysis very, very soon. But of course, it all starts with listening the students, and like I told in the beginning, ESN will continue to listen to students once again, another year, and hopefully for more 35 years from now. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Rita. I don't know if you had the same feeling as me, but like thinking about how the Erasmus Plus program evolved, and at least I did 3 Erasmus mobilities, thinking about all the challenges I had, but actually I'm usually negative, but I have to say that even though I had quite a big challenges, then if I wouldn't have so many challenges, I wouldn't even have the opportunity to be here and to stand here in front of you and to talk about how amazing is the Erasmus Plus program. Now I welcome here on stage Daphne Scherer, and actually is administrator for a parliamentary body at the European Parliament, but we have actually more things in common because I'm also from ESN Italy, and I know that you are alumni of ESN Italy, so welcome here on stage, and you will moderate the panel that is called Coming Together to Mobilize Europe. So thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you very much, and welcome to the panel discussion Coming Together to Mobilize Europe. Really, thank you for giving me the opportunity to moderate this panel today, not just because the topic is really to my heart, but also it's very nice to meet the new generation of ESNers. So please just allow me to introduce myself. I'm in charge of youth affairs at the Secretariat of the Committee on Culture and Education, the CULT Committee of the European Parliament. My background is in the field of youth and civil society, but also higher education and Erasmus+, and my studies were in languages and communication. And as it was mentioned, I am an ESN alumna, so very happy to be here. The aim of our panel today is to explore a bit more the topic of active citizenship as one of the overarching priorities in Erasmus+, and this topic is particularly relevant this year because we're going to have European Parliament elections in June, as you heard already a million times. And I hope that this will be one of the key things you will remember to tell everyone about after this conference. Sorry about my voice. I was completely without a voice this week and I was praying to be better today. So the structure of the panel will be the following. We will first have a first round of talks on active citizenship and issues that are faced by the youth organizations to attract young people to volunteer following the COVID-19 crisis. And it was just mentioned that there are now less participants that are involved in activities organized by civil society organizations. So we're going to try and see what can we do about that. And that will be followed by questions and answers. And then we will move on the topic of EU elections. In particular, the fact that voting age has been decreased in a number of countries, including Belgium. But, you know, how do we get young people to vote, and how many young people are interested in standing as a candidate at local, national, and European elections? This will be followed by another Q&A session. And finally, we will review what can be done in Erasmus+ to increase the impact of this priority. So I'm going to now introduce the speakers. We're going to listen to the perspectives and interact with the following speakers today. We decided we're going to go only by first names at this conference. So we have Martin, who's Policy Office and Project Coordinator at ACA. Welcome. You can start coming to the stage. I will introduce all of you. Horia, who's the President of the European Students' Union, ESU. We have Jorgos, a liaison officer for youth affairs at ESN. And we have Jask, who's Vice President of JEF Europe. And I will sit in the middle to minimize the gender unbalance. But I think first we have we start with a video message, right? I look at the organ. No? Yes? After. Oh, after. All right, good. So I will just maybe say the first thing from here, and then I'm going to sit with you. So we have, we're going to start with the first part, where we're going to talk about what concrete actions are being taken to promote active participation in society today, and how to get more young people interested in volunteering and getting involved in civil society. And for this, I will first give the word to Jorgos, explaining about this topic. Thank you so much.
So, hello everybody, good morning. It's a perfect day, sun after 1 month that I have been in Brussels, so it's amazing for me. It's lovely to be in Ghent. Pardon? Bit closer. Perfect. So it's a pleasure to be in Ghent together with you, and it's amazing to be here because this is where Erasmus Student Network was born, and to be together with the foundational generation of Erasmus Student Network also. Probably 2024, it's also the year of Ghent, European Youth Capital, Erasmus Destination, so amazing. But our network has been developed since then. We have a presence in more than 1,000 universities, supporting more than 350,000 students, international students. and of course speaking together with passionate advocates of students' rights like Horia or EU federalism like Czesk puts a bit of pressure on my shoulders. Is mobility connected with active participation? Of course, the answer is yes. ESN Survey 2019, under the topic Active Citizenship and Student Exchange in view of the European elections, has some interesting findings on this. Students with an exchange experience are far more engaged in civil society organizations than the average European youth. Students who are on exchange tend to vote less because of procedural barriers that we need to keep in mind, and I will make a connection later to a relevant project of Erasmus Student Network. Erasmus alumni have higher interest and are more likely to vote in EU elections than the European average. Apparently from this panel they are becoming part of EU at their point. EU students with an exchange experience wish for more rights as EU citizens and for more European civic education in schools. How ESN contributes to this discussion? We are here. We are almost in every European university to support international students and let them know that their mobility will be better because we are together on this path. We advocate for more, better, and more inclusive student mobility. We advocate based on facts. As Rita, our president, previously presented the preliminary findings of the latest ESN survey, we advocate based on these facts. Together with ESU, for instance, last semester we published a joint research report on housing because we want to map which are the obstacles that international students face during their mobility regarding housing. And we make recommendations also because we know which are our problems on this situation. We organize multiple volunteering activities in local, national, and international level, and projects like the Erasmus Generation in Action, funded by the European Parliament. There we are trying, for these European elections, we are trying to raise awareness on youth rights and increase the electoral turnout in EU elections to raise awareness and so on and so forth. And also we advocate together, we form alliances. We are part of big youth platforms like the European Youth Forum. We campaign together on topics like the unpaid leaderships and voting at 16. And Rares, I will not steal more of your speaking points, I'm sure on this. If we all agree that CSOs contribute to the democratic game, let's support them. If we are part of them, let's realize of our civic duty that we carry out in view of the next European elections, because they are going to be crucial. The rise of the far right is a fact. Forces that are not taking youth so seriously. So it's a crucial semester and every vote counts. And that's it from my side.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to move now to Martin to speak about the work of ACA in this field.
Yes, thank you very much, and happy to be here to address this audience. Maybe for those of you who don't know us, ACA stands for Academic Cooperation Association, and we're an association of funding agencies who are supporting internationalization, and many of them are actually the national agencies for Erasmus+. So this program is quite in the focus of our work. But I was asked to come here to speak on how and what do we do on civic engagement, the priority of the Erasmus+, but also in different projects. We have recently finished one project called AISBL, Internationalization of Higher Education for Society, which was looking into how to combine actually the internationalization and societal engagement. And based on the experience of this project and other projects in the field, a nice consortium was set up by ESN to form another project called ISEM. And in this project, what we are trying to do right now actually is we're trying to see how can we combine existing practices in supporting civic engagement and societal actors and internationalization. So there we're building on the experience of the already mentioned IHES project. We're looking into the community engagement ideas developed by the partners from the Institute for Development of Education, and we're also building on the ideas of service learning, where we're trying to see how can we bring in the methods of service learning into developing what's usually done by different organizations, mostly by ESN actually, on volunteerings at the mobilities. So what we are right now discussing within the project is how to sort of level up the volunteering methods of volunteering into service learning, which is sort of a more advanced form of cooperation, which is not only where you send people to do something within a local organization, but there's also a learning element involved. There's a reflection. Ideally, there would be some credits that would recognize this and so on and so forth. So we're working on that, and actually it's quite interesting for us because as we are working, as I said, with the national agencies who are sort of the administrative and managerial support of the Erasmus Plus project, we've tried to put together the perspectives of those organizations and with the civic society organizations combined with the universities to see how can, you know, mobilities, how can the framework of the Erasmus Plus mobilities be used to increase that. So we're currently working on different materials and methods, and also we'll have some policy recommendations for the European Commission and also for the national levels on how to further develop this. So it's quite an exciting project. You can look it up, ESEM. And if you're following ESN's channels, I'm pretty sure you'll see the information over there.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So we have now the time for maybe 2 or 3 questions from the audience. If you already have any questions for Jorgos or Martin, would anyone like to ask something before we move to the next speakers?
A fake question.
Yes. Although we have a microphone, so.
It's actually a question to Martin, but perhaps others can join in as well. You were referring to IHES, so the project on internationalization for higher education society. Shouldn't all internationalization be for society? I mean, should not all of the activities that we do be focused on that? And well, it's a question whether, to what extent we still need to distinguish between these different types of internationalization.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I think that's always implied when it comes to internationalization. What we were looking into there and how can this be explicit. And here also I think we come to the question of impact. And actually, well, there's a second question I will talk about later. And with impact, it's always a bit tricky because it's very difficult to pinpoint the actual correlations and the impact of the work. It's very difficult to measure it. Well, all of these topics that we're discussing of internationalization and mobilities, they do have some impact on the we've seen the data just now. But what we were looking into in that project is that how can there's a full methodology behind it, looking into how can different societal actors be involved in the activities. So it doesn't mean that you can say when we're doing internationalization, it is for society. Society here means actor outside of the higher education institution, actually, and this is sort of what is in a way guaranteeing that their voices are brought in. Ideally, if we talk about comprehensive approaches to internationalization, all of those should be part of it. I mean, the societal dimension, the inclusive dimension, sustainability is also a big topic now, which I think within Erasmus is trying to be embedded within the mobility and key action 2 projects and so on. So yes, all of these activities do have an impact, but what we are trying to look there is how to make this impact more focused and then more impactful.
Okay. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you would like to ask a question at this stage, otherwise we will move on to the next speakers. Okay, we will move on. So about this second part, we're going to talk about the EU elections that are coming up. So I wanted to ask our next speakers what is being done by your organization and how to ensure that young people go to vote, and also how are you raising interest in standing for elections? So I will first give the word to Jask to talk about the work of JEF Europe, please.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Good morning. And first of all, thank you for the invitation to ESN for counting on us. So basically, to sum up what we do at the Young European Federalists when it comes to the elections and to encouraging the youth vote and participation, basically I would sum it up on two aspects. On the one hand, it's actually three aspects. On the one hand, civic education, campaigning, and advocacy. Basically, to start with civic education, we have this long time. We have over the decades had multiple projects, both at the national scale, but also at the European one on interventions at schools called Europe at School, in which we go to middle high schools to talk about what the European Union is, what the institutions are, what opportunities there are for the young people, so that they can also have that feeling of belonging by understanding, and also they can be more prone to participating by also understanding what it means to be a citizen, because we also approach it through a perspective of active citizenship, which is also something that many people mentioned in the slide. Then when it comes to advocacy and campaigns, I'm going to merge it into a single point and talk about the project we are undertaking for the current election campaign, and also going back to what has been mentioned before, especially during the presentation of the ESN survey, there was the element of the listening, and that was the approach we took to how we campaign and how we work with this European election. And basically, we are collaborating through this campaign with an organization called Make.org, which is specialized in online consultations. And we've basically came up with this campaign called Your Hope, because we first did a little consultation, and we realized that one of the first feelings that people come up with when they think of Europe, it's hope. There are a lot of negative feelings, of course, but the main positive one was hope. And we thought we should do something to give people hope about the elections. And most people understand that generally election campaigns end up being some competition, something destructive, but actually wanted to bring it into a positive, propositive field. That's why we came up with this campaign. We organized an online consultation during the summer last year. We had over 1.5 million votes and more than 5,000 proposals launched in that platform. And out of that, we basically, by the way, let me specify that those 1.5 million votes are from people between the age of 16 to 35 in the EU. It's not like a much broader, just also for the contextualization of the dimension of the youth perspective in this consultation. Out of that, we did an analysis. Actually, you can see the results of that consultation in the website. It's called yourhope.org. You will find it very easily. And we identified 15 main topics which are of concern for people, like, for example, more sustainable industries, a stronger voice for the EU in the world, or, for example, enhancing cooperation in the field of education. And out of that, we decided also to go, okay, we know what people want or what concerns people, what worries them, but we want to make proposals for parties and candidates. And we don't want this to be a JEF campaign. We want this to be a civil society organizations campaign. So we approached civil society. Actually, on that specific proposal of education, we have ESWA and ESN, which have been very, very helpful in gathering proposals that we have incorporated into our policy proposals that are going to be out very soon. And it's not only about listening, it's also going to be about acting. And in that regard, we're going to go from the first minute after we have released the policy proposals. We're going to meet with, we're already meeting actually with political parties, at the European level, also at the national one, with candidates, to come to them with these ideas like, hey, people have these concerns, civil society proposes this. And we want them to agree to support those ideas, the more the better, so that we have an election that is based on proposals, not only on infighting and division and negative feelings. And besides that, just to conclude, also on the specific point of encouraging young people to vote, because on the one hand, of course, knowing that parties listen to their proposals is important to engage, but also we know that there are other elements that make it difficult for young people, or that don't make them feel encouraged to vote. That's why we also launched a project called COYV, C-O-Y-V, which stands for Cooperation Youth Vote. We launched this project over a year ago with several partners, namely OBESU, the Organizing Bureau of European School Student Unions, the Lifelong Learning Platform, and Young Educators, in which basically with this alliance of civil society organizations, we made a study of what are the root causes of the lack of political engagement from young people. And actually today and tomorrow we have the final conference of this project, out of which there will be a toolkit which can be used to promote youth participation and youth political engagement. So that's also something specific we've been doing to target the lack of, or the smaller than average participation of young people in political engagement. And that would be all from me. Thanks.
Thank you very much for this comprehensive introduction to the topic. I will now give the word to Horia to tell us more about the work of ESU on these topics.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. Just very briefly about ESU, we represent 45 national unions of students in 40 countries. These national unions are independent, representative, democratic unions at the national level, and basically our main purpose since 1982 was to further student rights in a lot of developing EU or the European policy arenas, from the Bologna process to European Union, Council of Europe, UNESCO, and so on. And we reflected upon our role in the European elections mainly 2 years ago in 2020, and we decided that our role is mainly on the policy side, let's put it like this. And for this, we worked a lot on education, but also with other civil society partners in relevant topics about civil society engagement in the European Union. Now, for education, 2 years ago, almost, in 2022, after a ludicrous, let's put it like this, debate process, we come up with 24 proposals that were voted by our General Assembly, and they served as our platform for what we want to push forward in the European elections. We met with the European political parties, 4 of them, actually, we decided to engage with PES, with Greens, with ALDE, and with EPP. We met them separately, we met them in broader consultations, and we put forward our proposals. Now we see that at least in 2 cases they were successful. The PES and the Greens already published their resolutions for the elections, and we saw several points related to education that have a direct link with topics that we pursued. For ALDE and EPP, we don't have their resolutions yet. We also discussed with our national unions, because at the end of the day, the European elections are in many cases 27 national elections, with their own political parties, their own priorities, their own way of engagement, etc. So they also contributed to the manifestos of the national political parties. What we are doing now, we are offering guidance for the national unions to organize political debates, to engage in the political process in a non-partisan way. We also will organize in 2 weeks, actually, a debate in the Brussels City Hall with European political parties related to the role of education in the future strategy of the European Union. And we will also have some promotional campaigns, let's say, both related to analyzing the political party manifestos and to get out to vote. But for us, it was very important to have this policy discussion at European level. And I can give you a very, very easy example. In December, the Spanish presidency, when discussing the multi-annual review of the EU budget, they discussed about about cutting Erasmus, 6 months before the elections. We are discussing legitimately, and we are all concerned about the rise of far-right, but then you want to cut the most successful program of the European Union 6 months after the elections, before the elections, considering the fact that youth are in general way more supportive of EU. So we are there to sanction these and to send clear messages to the policymakers. And also we came to the conclusion that our audience is, and ESU members are already very engaged in European elections. So what is our added value? Our added value, we saw it was in this direction while we had to empower, especially our local unions, to move towards the empowerment for getting out to vote. And I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. Huh? We all know the positive impact of civil society organizations in general participation in society, and then this also leads into participation, getting to vote in elections. And I will just give you an anecdote. In 2019, last time, I was president of my local union in Bucharest, and we organized an activity on Sunday when the elections day were, and then we said, okay, we are now going together to vote. Of course, it was voluntary, but we had from 500 members of the union, we had around 150 going to vote together on the same day in the same electoral station. Many of them, no, all of them were young people, most of them were first voters. So that was a way that we saw the issue right there directly from the role of civil society. But I'm going to finish with the role of political parties in this, because that is the point where we need to have the wake-up call. And we had an amazing campaign from Jeff, because it's very difficult to motivate people to go to vote for the sake of the importance of elections or for a positive element. In many cases, it is easier to legitimately motivate young people or motivate citizens in general to go for elections for an anger reason or for being disappointed. But there's a risk in that. There are two risks, actually. The first one is that if they vote like that for anger and nothing changes, they either become disengaged afterwards, nothing changed, I tried and that's it, or they say that this is not happening in any way I like, and then they tend to go toward more extremist factions. So having this mindset of promoting political participation for positive change, of course, for not for voting directly against something, is a way to mainstream it. And I think maybe we can follow up on this also in several other conversations and questions, but regarding the entry level, this is a point where we have a lot of young activists who are so interested in politics and so interested in policy making, but there are still so many entry barriers in terms of resources, in terms of not liking or not liking how you perceive that politics work, that they won't stand for elections. And then we have political family dynasties, and we have young people that, parties that say, oh, we have young people. Why? Because all the sons and the daughters of the MEPs or MPs are running again for elections. This is not the way forward, but we still have these entry barriers for so many young activists. And we are discussing with political parties, we are discussing with other peers in the civil society to try to change that.
Well, thank you very much for your introduction and also for this anecdote, which explains very well what are the barriers in this area. Now, I wanted to know if from the audience we now have, do you have any questions for our speakers? Any curiosity, any comment? Yes. But they will give you the microphone so we can hear you better.
Hi, I would like to ask Oria how you're supporting the students' unions on promoting these types of activities. I thought it was really interesting, and I'd really like if you could be a bit more specific about it.
Yeah, sure. So for us, I would start actually with a reference. We always hear that young people don't vote or don't vote in the same numbers. I would partly at least debunk that myth. Statistically speaking, young people do not necessarily vote in way lesser numbers. I think it's more about getting to different categories of young people and going beyond urbanite youth, let's call it like this. And students, in a way, are not directly the most well-placed category in this discussion, because usually they are more affluent than other peers, and this is the problem of access to higher education, and usually they are more engaged. Of course, there is still the problem of disengagement and people who are taught that politics doesn't change anything and I'm living in my bubble and that's it. Now, for the local student unions, we as SU, we do not have a direct contact with all the local unions, because that's not our role. We have contact with the national unions. So we provided input for the national unions, basically a guideline. We have a guideline where we tell them what is at stake, translating what we do at European level, what our proposal would actually mean for students, because that's our category. So, okay, we want automatic recognition. What does it mean? We want more money for Erasmus. Let's say this is an easier example. What does it mean? We want student participation in the European education area governance framework. Why? We want a social dimension, because now there are many initiatives of EU that do not, in this area, that do not necessarily take into account this impact of different categories of students. Why does it matter? So we translate these in very easy bits for our unions. We tell them how we engaged before with political parties, what we know that their opinion is, how can it be shaped, how can different ideas can be pitched to different political parties, and that's what the national unions do. On engagement, apart from telling in these easy bits why is relevant for students specifically, we also send them guidelines provided by others. So we don't want to create what is something there. So we had a COIF project, there are other projects, activities that already have resources on how to engage. And we also rely a lot on the local student unions and how they know best to do this, considering their engagement activities. So basically we are offering this pillar of understanding of why it matters and what our proposals are. We give them resources from around, and then the national unions afterwards communicate with the local student unions.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Yeah. Rita.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for our esteemed speakers. Actually, my question goes to Martin, and I want to ask you, actually, because you work a lot with the national agencies and you work with them daily, how actually the national agencies are promoting active citizenship and this topic inside their bodies.
Yeah. So we just had a workshop with I think 17 national agencies last week, where we were asking them questions on what is happening and what is going on. And as you can imagine, the experience varies according to countries. Some of them do have some frameworks within which they are organizing with the higher education institutions different activities, mostly now in line with the European elections. Some of them have reported that they really don't know how to do it, and what would this mean and how would this be done. And there's also, I think, a need to clarify what civic engagement actually means. So whether civic engagement means working with your local partners, or it means necessarily promoting the European elections and all other types of participation. And there, I think there's some. I think there is some confusion still there. So I think what would be useful is to have some sort of a common understanding of the types of activities that could be done and the types of activities that could be supported also by Erasmus+. And especially because of the election year, many of them have decided to put this priority among the other, 4 in total, the other 3, to put this one into more focus now and to support the projects who are dealing with this. But also I think we're still sort of missing some strategical frameworks or action plans and a bit more guidance, I think, on how to do this. And especially, I think in different countries you would have different approaches to this. And I mean, it is possible also, I mean, after the elections you will likely have some countries where these topics maybe will not be so welcomed. And this is quite risky, I think. And I think this is a question that we need to perhaps start asking and to see, okay, how do we deal with that and with this new situation?
Thank you.
If you both have questions, you can both ask your questions and then we gather them.
Can I make a comment and then a question? For the last question to Martin about what national agencies can do, I would like to share best practice of the DAAD, the national agency in Germany. The DAAD allows local student clubs to receive specific funding, and every year they outline 2 or 3 key priorities as lateral priorities for the Erasmus program, and the student clubs can organize events and projects in that direction. So this year, for example, active citizenship is one of the priorities, and these local clubs are encouraged to organize activities to encourage people to vote for a grant of up to 500 euros, and we see this works quite well. I would like to ask my question to Cześć about civic education. I really liked how you outlined that it is not just going to the polls, ticking a box and going away. It is the whole process before that has to happen. So you educate why do people vote and how do people vote. My question is, how can local students that are active work together with the universities, for example, to guarantee a culture that this is implemented at a university level, the civic education?
So on that regard, I mean, on the one hand, we have, of course, we basically channel that through the school intervention program I mentioned. Actually, at least until the pandemic, because well, then that changed a bit our dynamic, and it's still a program that's recovering from that time. We used to do it in many countries with student associations. I mean, I remember in some member states, I don't remember in which one, we did it with some local branches of ESN, and that was one of the elements about the involvement of students in promoting that. Also, besides that, one of the activities we organize outside of the school interventions, but also on the aspect of active citizenship, is simulations. I mean, we've organized simulations either of the whole structure of the EU or of specific institutions of the EU, which we also feel, and also here I talk personally because it was one of my first activities with Jeff. It also helps a lot young people to understand what the EU is, because at the beginning, I mean, also even if you are engaged in an organization like mine, sometimes if you don't have a practical experience, it's a bit complicated and overwhelming, like I don't understand anything, this is so complicated, this is difficult. But once you do this kind of exercise of learning by doing, you can really get to understand that, and not only understand the processes, but also feel more prone to taking an active step in doing your part and trying to be involved, maybe not, of course, running as a candidate, but in other kinds of consultation processes that either institutions or civil society organizations may undertake. And then lastly, with our participation normally at all levels with youth councils, we think also it's a platform that we try to encourage our members to take part in.
So I have a question for Cesc also. I'm sorry. I think you talked during your speech about the fact of like going to school to talk about Europe, to talk about citizenship to young people. My question would be, how important do you think the fact of planting these seeds early into youth people's minds have an impact on the engagement of the youth, and how do you think this will evolve in the future, this type of interventions?
Could you repeat the question again? I didn't hear it quite well, sorry.
Sorry. So how important would you think the fact of planting the seeds in youth people's minds at school by talking about Europe, by talking about citizenship, has an impact on their engagement in the future?
I think it's very important because, I mean, in those school interventions, for example, we don't only talk about Europe, because we also give a hint of the opportunities when it comes particularly to the element of mobility, because, I mean, there's also something I will also get into the topic of Erasmus+, but we feel and that the element of mobility and exchange with people from different national cultural backgrounds, language backgrounds, is also something that encourages young people to get more involved politically. Maybe Europe is a bit of their entry gate into the overall political engagement, not only about European topics, but also about more local ones. But we feel that's basically one of the main elements, talking about the particular opportunities that European structures of funding, exchanges, political participation give, even employment, to encourage people also to want to have young people to have that international experience, to make friendships, to sometimes make relationships, and we see that as a very important way. I mean, also when it comes back to the reference again to the results of the ESN survey, of course that maybe a big majority of people did not engage in civil society organizations, but still a reasonable percentage made the effort of involving themselves into that kind of platforms, and that's in the end also a form of civic engagement. So it proves that there is that point that if we talk about mobility, about international opportunities, that's also a very good gateway for youth engagement.
Thank you. I would take one last question from the audience there, please.
Thank you. So, what about the possibility to vote online? So, what about net voting? How far are we on that?
Who wants to answer that?
I mean, as a disclaimer, we do not have a position as ESU on that. Online, I mean, in general, I think we should frame the discussion into how to make it more easier to vote. Online voting is one way to do it. And now, from my lawyer perspective, I think that it should be doable, but you also have, for example, the German Constitutional Court that says otherwise, begs to disagree, as we say, and for some, let's say, balancing acts in terms of different fundamental values and fundamental rights, and it's not necessarily about the security of the scrutiny rather than protection. So this is at least some thoughts from the German Constitutional Court. Whether and to what extent that should be, or that it could be overcome, we go more into a constitutional discussion in many countries. Of course, we have systems that implemented it, and it works very well. So that should be an example of, look, you can do it. And I'm not talking only about, let's say, the front runner of Estonia, but also other countries that have successfully tried this or initially implemented it at local level. It worked, and then they went further and further on. But online voting is one way to do it. There are still so many barriers. For example, in Italy right now, the National Union of Students is discussing about I do not know exactly how to translate it in English. It's called flotant. We also have it, basically the rules of voting from your own circumscription, even in European Parliament elections, because you have national constituencies. In Italy, you have regional ones, but nevertheless, you cannot vote from where you study. So this is one step to do it. Probably online voting would be the highest idea, let's say so. In some countries, we may go there faster. In others, we may go there not so fast because of various guardrails, like in Germany or other countries.
Disclaimer: ESN has not a specific position on online voting, but regarding other kind of barriers on the voting procedure regarding international students. Because also in the Erasmus Generation project, we did some work on that. One simple example, and I mentioned before in my speech that many international students who are going to mobility, yes, they want to vote, but they face some barriers. What kind of barriers? Very simple ones. Like if they are not registered in their hosting place, they cannot vote. It's not so easy to go to the embassy, blah, 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 in some member states, okay? Or mail voting. It's not so easy in many member states. So I understand that online voting has different elements of security checks, constitutionality checks, etc., but there are other also solutions that we should reinforce. And we should raise awareness on the legislators that keep in mind there are these kind of barriers, because also not all of them are aware of them. So this is an important discussion to open constructively from the side of civil society, to map the barriers. I don't have a list right now to give you, and find solutions, especially for youth, and especially for, at least for ESN, for our target audience, which is international students.
Thank you. I have one last question to all the panelists. We actually started talking about what more can be done in Erasmus Plus to increase the impact on this priority, and I was also happy to hear some good examples also from the audience. We already talked about NAs exchanging best practices at workshops, specific funding being available under Erasmus Plus, like in the DAD, simulations of EU institutions, and helping Erasmus students to vote. So is there anything else that you think could be done in Erasmus Plus, or any ideas for future projects, just like you mentioned, where really we can see that this priority could be increased? Some people said it was maybe a bit forgotten until now about this priority, and then maybe because of the European elections now there is a big momentum. So how do we keep the momentum, and how can we still improve Erasmus+? I will ask this to all the speakers, and whoever wants can answer. Please.
First, I would like to start from a bold argument, like we should not take for granted that Erasmus will always be there, will always be in this form and with this kind of budget. Horia mentioned that in current negotiations of the EU budget, the multi-annual financial framework, MFF, there were discussions, and serious discussions, to reallocate and take some money from Erasmus Plus and put them to other EU priorities. Very important ones that we may all agree, disagree, doesn't matter. But this is a very serious discussion. So to know which political forces guarantee, promise that in the next cycle of the EU budget, Erasmus will be there, for sure with the same budget, with specific priorities that will be there, the social inclusion, blah, 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 and all the others. But it will be enhanced also. So I would like to start from this. And regarding specificities, I would just reference you to policy papers and surveys of ESN. It's very easy. ESN.org, policy, blah, blah, blah. You will find all of our reports. And there you will find plenty of recommendations for different topics, from housing to, now I forgot to give you examples, but you get my point. So I will just stop here.
I think we can, we can go this way. I think I would start with the fact that, it's difficult on board with impossible to believe that everyone or all young people will volunteer or all will get engaged. I think of course, we need to strive for that, but we also need to strive that everyone, society overall, also those that do not get engaged, recognize and valorize the importance of volunteering and active citizenship. And I know it's not the best time to reference United States, and even less so I enjoy the philosophic model of higher education in United States, but they got it right with this. They have much more flexibility for volunteering. They have tools related to the recognition of volunteering. We have in Bologna process recognition of prior learning for 20 years. It is also reiterated in council documents of the European Union. In Erasmus, we also have references to recognition of prior learning. It's far from being that recognized. So firstly, we have the flexibility issue. Secondly, and the resources, but that's the one where we can easily all have agreed upon for years and years. Then is the recognition of prior learning issue, and how do we actually offer formal recognition of the volunteering and of the learning outcomes that come from volunteering. And the third point is a common framework for this. So we have so many frameworks at European level, competencies framework on digitalization and entrepreneurship, green, so on and so forth, research, policy making. We do not have such kind of a common language to talk about the benefits of volunteering in a more formal way. And that probably will be a way, including through Erasmus+, through which we can move a bit forward in the formal recognition of volunteering with formalized tools in higher education, in labor market, so on.
Thank you. On this, I will just want to say thank you for mentioning the recognition of volunteering. This is the matter that is very much at heart of the European Parliament as well, and you can find it in the implementation reports for our programs, including for the European Solidarity Corps, which is the main program for volunteering. And I think this also creates synergies between the programs because they are facing similar issues, and certainly everyone can learn from each other and try to really maximize and capitalize on each other's strengths and using tools available for all programs and beyond. Well, we're going to continue. I know you already spoke a lot.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that. Yeah, I'm just going to mention 2 points. On the one hand, strengthening the active citizenship education aspect of Erasmus+. I mean, of course, we have elements like the simulations that I was mentioning before that are useful for that, but there can be a more in-depth approach to that point. And secondly, I mean, I'm going to slightly reiterate on the issue, but it's the funding. It's essential that Erasmus+ is not only doesn't see its budget reduced, but it has to be expanded, because Erasmus+ doesn't only cover EU member states. I mean, we have to remember that it covers also EFTA, but also importantly, the candidate states to join the EU. And now we have 3 new ones, quite big on a certain case, Moldova, Ukraine, and Georgia. And for the young people of those countries, the first experience of contact with the youth of the European Union is going to come through Erasmus+. And that's the way that they're going to manage not only to strengthen their capacities as civically engaged young people, but also in feeling that they belong to this EU that they're going to join eventually in the future. So that would be my message on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be brief because many of the things were already mentioned, but obviously funding is crucial, and for the funding to increase, to follow the ambitions of the program. Also, I think it would be necessary to work within the Erasmus Plus program to set up certain civic engagement strategies and to give further guidance to the national agencies. Also, this means that we would need to come up with certain indicators which would identify what would make a certain project impactful, or for supporting the projects and so on. Then in the implementation side, the evaluators should know how to recognize this. I know this was one of the challenges within the inclusion priority, that the evaluators had to be also sort of coached and trained. And also there is the Salto Center for participation, which is covering all education fields now, and I think they have an important role to play in terms of providing expertise to the national agencies. So it is hosted by the Estonian National Agency, and then they are providing guidance strategies and so on to the other NAs. And I think this is where within the sort of the backbone of the program, this can be supported further. And then after this, it comes the impact and collaboration with civil society organizations and so on and so forth. So I think, that should be some of the points there. And we're still developing these ideas and policy recommendations, so I'm just throwing some of them out there for further discussions later.
Thank you very much. I think now we are really closing this circle and going back to what we started with. We started talking about internationalization that happens abroad, but also at home. And at home it means in your own university, but also beyond what we said in society. And we also mentioned in schools, Europe at schools, Erasmus at schools, which is hopefully now restarting after the COVID pandemic. And that this benefits the society. And I just wanted to point out that we've been talking about this process from different angles, and it seems to me that we're always going back to a certain pattern. The first that you mentioned was about listening and mapping, and then there is the acting part and the engaging and empowering. And I think this is really the role of civil society organizations. This is what you have been doing. You then produce guidelines and toolkits and recommendations and really try and help the young people to get involved. So I would like to thank you for that. The European Parliament has a hashtag in the view of the upcoming elections about use your vote. So I really hope you all get to use your vote and also help your friends, your family, and obviously the Erasmus students to use their vote as well. So I would like to thank Martin, Horia, Yorgos, and Jask for their time here and for their contributions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Sorry for taking so much time. Thank you so much.
So, well, hope you enjoyed this panel. I enjoyed it a lot, and hopefully we also managed to talk a lot also about some best practices of the organizations. So I advise you also to have a look at the website and all the projects of ACA, ESU, JEF, and of course ESN. So the next panel, the next presentation will be about youth engagement in today's reality, shaping the future of youth, and will be done by Raresh Voicu, board member of the European Youth Forum. Raresh is 21 years old and has been involved in the field of youth and child participation since the age of 15. Over the past 6 years, he has led various youth organizations at the local, national, and international level, advocating for the rights of his peers and empowering them to have their voices heard by decision makers. Raresh currently serves as board member of the European Youth Forum, the world's largest platform for youth organization, and he has previously worked also for UNICEF in the field of youth and adolescent engagement, supporting the participation of children in the decision-making processes. So Raresh, please come to the stage.
Is the clicker here? Fantastic. Is the mic?
It's here.
And I want to move around.
You want? Okay. Yeah. Can we have? Sorry. Can we have the mic? Yes. Thank you.
So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here and I'm very happy to see you all. In the next 20 minutes, there is a lot of time, to be honest, for me to speak. So it's not going to be only me speaking, only me moving, but it's going to be all of us, right? So today we talk about youth engagement and what it means in our realities. And as Sarah very nicely mentioned, I am a board member of the European Youth Forum. So as a bit of background information about those of you who don't know what the Youth Forum is, we are the largest platform of youth organizations in the world. We have more than 100 member organizations, both national youth councils and international youth organizations. Among us, we have some of them, ESU, ESN, and others. And we represent our members who represent in turn millions and millions of young people from across Europe. So we are partnering with ESN in the MEET project to work with young people directly, to engage them in the European elections, and for us as youth organizations to better understand what we can do to support participation and voter turnout in the European elections. Now, who am I? We've said this enough. My name is Raresh. I'm 21 years old. I'm a board member of the European Youth Forum. And within the forum, I work on non-formal education and on the European elections. But the big question that we're going to be answering in the next 20 minutes, and I said we on purpose, is what is youth engagement? So I tried to bring it down to 3 main rules or 3 main points. I'm not sure if it's going to be completely accurate or if it's going to make total sense, but we're going to discover them together, okay? Okay, cool. So the first rule that we're going to discover together, for that, I'm going to need you to look to your left and right side neighbors. I notice a bit of clustering, so I think you might know each other already, but it's never too late to get to know each other more in depth. So you're going to have 30 seconds to find out more about your right and left side neighbors, and I mean the 30 seconds. So I'm going to be very, very strict with that. So in 3, 2, 1, and start to meet each other. Okay, and time's up. I want you all to be very quiet now. I'm still hearing voices. Very quiet, okay. So you have to be strict on the 30 seconds. And the reason behind that is, right, when it comes to youth engagement, you meet so many people, left and right. The point at the end of the day is to properly coordinate so that you manage to meet everyone, to hear everyone, and to engage everyone. So the first lesson about youth engagement is that it takes coordination, right? In 30 seconds, you have to meet 2 people and get to know them at the basic level, so you need to coordinate for that. So this is the first lesson. Now, for the second lesson, we're going to be doing a bit of group therapy, right? So you're going to speak again, and I thought long and hard about this exercise, but I decided to stick with it in the end, so bear with me. So this is a moment where you can just rant. So, what we're going to be doing is take a few moments to think about some of the issues that really, really bother you on a daily basis as a young person, or not only. So we're talking about having to do unpaid internships, the cost of living crisis, whatever, the fact that, I don't know, maybe it was raining when you were biking here this morning, whatever bothers you, this is the moment to get it off your chest. And we're not pointing fingers, so you can have whatever issues or whatever problems you want, because we're all going to be saying them at the same time. Okay? Are you with me? Okay. So take a moment to think about it, and on the count of 5, I want all of you to just start speaking about your problems. Not to each other, just speak them out into the void. Okay? Okay, so I'll give you a moment to think about it. Whatever language you want. Whatever language you want. So I want us to have a chorus of problems today that will stay in this room after this session, okay? So 3, 2, 1. Louder, louder, I want to hear you. Louder, much louder. Louder, I can't hear you. I still can't hear you. I don't know what's up. Okay. Thank you. I noticed when we didn't do it. That's totally fine if you don't feel comfortable doing it here. Thank you to those of you who did. Maybe you feel a bit less pressured by those problems. And now, maybe 2 or 3 people from those who did talk about these things. Do you want to tell us what it is that bothers you, what it is that pressures you as a young person? Yes.
What I said was the political representation of young people in our structures. I've met a lot of politicians the last year, and they are not under, or the most of them are not under 35, and I don't feel politically represented.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Any other brave person? Come on.
I have one. I love to be an active citizen and to engage myself, but from the side of the university, there's an immense pressure to graduate and to fit within the curriculum, and the recognition doesn't come there. It's often the opposite of recognition, and then you have to balance that.
So recognition, political participation, political representation. Let's hear one last one. Yes.
Hi, it's also about the recognition of institutions that students need to oftentimes work to pay their study and to pay their cost of living, and sometimes they just need to do all the study, etc., and there's no flexibility in the curriculum.
Thank you for that, and just thank you for being vulnerable overall in this moment. So the reason why we started off all together and then we narrow it down to individual contributions is what brings me to the next rule of youth engagement. In those big processes where we try to engage young people, we talk about the European elections, we talk about just youth engagement process in general, it can be so hard to remember that when we listen to all young people, we have to listen to each young person for it to make sense and for it to be meaningful. Now, so this last one, the third rule, it's going to be a bit of an Oprah moment. Have you seen the Oprah show ever in your lives? Okay, it doesn't matter. We'll get on with it. So I hope this is going to work. Check under your chairs. Some of you, so check in the chairs under your chairs and the chairs next to you. Some of you will find a piece of paper. We have 4 pieces of paper in the room. Okay, so wave it when you find it. Okay, we found one of them. The second one. Have we lost some of the third one? Okay. Yeah, it's 4. Oh, and we found the 4th one as well. Fantastic. So what we're going to do now to discover the 4th rule together, it's a bit of a puzzle, okay? So bear with me. Let's see if this is going to work. You have a number. You can open up that piece of paper. You have a number on it, and then a word. The number is don't show it to us just yet, so it's just for you. The number is the order in which you will read the word. So if you have number 1, you're the first to speak. If you're number 2, you come after that, and for number 3, I think you already get the point. So should we give it a shot and discover the 4th rule together? Go ahead. It takes working. Okay, can we try that again? Faster. Exactly. It takes working together. Youth engagement never happens individually. It never happens in a vacuum. It never happens just because one activist or because one engaged or involved young person wants to be engaged. It happens in a team, and it really does take a village. So, to recap, I don't know what happened there with the coordination, but it takes coordination. It takes hearing each young person to be able to hear all young people. And the last point, it takes working together. At the Youth Forum, we run a very broad research called the Youth Progress Index, through which we measure basically how young people are doing in the world, so globally, from different perspectives. We're talking about welfare, we're talking about civic space, we're talking about access to housing, access to rights, and so on. What we're seeing, we saw in this edition's, last year's editions of the Youth Progress Index, is that we are seeing increasingly shrinking civic spaces, which means both physical spaces for young people to participate, meaning youth centers or anything else, and spaces for young people in policy-making processes to participate and be active and have a contribution. So we're seeing a shrinking of those civic spaces. We're seeing that youth organizations and civil society organizations are being weakened, either through lack of funding or through red tape measures that make it more and more complicated for organizations in general to be set up and to function properly. So this is in terms of civic space and the actual areas that young people have to be able to participate. when it comes to the personal rights of young people, we have understood and we've discovered a positive correlation between young people who are engaged in political associations, and by this I don't necessarily mean party political. It can be just being here today to learn more about the European elections and about youth engagement, and access to their personal rights. So what we see, and it's a very strong correlation, is that when young people, it might seem pretty obvious now that I say it out loud, but what we see is that when young people are engaged in organizations such as ESN, for example, they have a greater access to their personal rights as young people, because oftentimes they are more aware of what those rights are, and they are more aware of how to fight for them and how to access them. So of course we're seeing this in terms of civil society strengthening, that when young people are engaged in these organizations, the collective voice of young people on average is strengthened. We have more access to policy-making processes, and this really brings me back to the last rule of youth engagement, that it takes working together. On the freedom of peaceful assembly and freedom of expression, we're seeing again a decrease in the access to those rights for young people. The reduction is quite dramatic for the number of years that we're talking about. So from 2011 to 2022, it's almost almost a 15 percentage points decrease in the access to freedom of expression. It looks tragic, I know. But we have pivotal moments to turn this around. This year, in 4 months, we will have such a moment for the European elections. Wherever you're from, because I'm sure we're all from different countries and all from different backgrounds, we have moments, context, opportunities to turn the statistic around every single day in the work that we do. Whether we are youth activists, whether we are students, whether we are teachers or professionals working in academia, we have the possibility to either ask for our right to freedom of expression and fight for it, or if we are institutions, to offer students and young people spaces to exercise those rights. So the subtitle of today's of this presentation in the agenda is Shaping Our Future as Young People. And I don't know about you, but I'm 21 years old, and for me, the idea of having to shape anyone's future is absolutely terrifying. And what I think is super important to understand, and what is not very often talked about in activism spaces, is that there is, first of all, not one ideal form of engagement. So you being here today is already a huge form of engagement. Going out to vote is a form of engagement. Signing a petition is a form of engagement. Being a member of ESN is a form of engagement. So there is no one ideal way to participate. And I think we need collectively to stop putting standards to youth participation, because each of us participate in our own ways and to our own levels of interest and ability. I think it's also important to acknowledge the pressure that we're facing. How many times when you go on Instagram, you see at least 3 or 4 stories about the conflict or climate change or how the world is basically kind of going to... How many of you have that at least once when going on Instagram? So of course, it's part of doom scrolling that we all know about, but at the end of the day, you also kind of internalize that pressure to do something or to be the one that changes that issue, that contributes in some way to changing that issue. And yes, it is part of our duty as young people, but it's also huge pressure. There's also so much pressure on our shoulders to be change makers, to be the ones who turn this whole mess around, that it's very easy to get caught up in it. And the last point is that it's a process. So youth engagement is a process that oftentimes is part of other processes, but when it comes to building youth engagement processes and the future of youth engagement, the core of it is that it's a process. It could be a drinking game. You take a shot every time I've said process in the past 25 seconds. But these are the main 3 points that we need to know when we try to get involved and to become engaged as young people. at the end of the day, why is it that youth engagement matters? So we boil it down to two main reasons at the Youth Forum. On the one hand, it's quantitative. It's a purely quantitative reason, meaning that more than half of the world's population is under 30, and yet, as you very well mentioned at the beginning, when it comes to political representation or representation in decision-making process in general, we are thoroughly and chronically underrepresented as young people. In terms of the qualitative aspect of it, the truth is that at the end of the day, as young people, we have the energy, we have the ideas, we have the drive and the motivation to be involved in those processes and to bring that one little spark that really turns processes, that really turns decision-making bodies, if you will, campaigns around. So we're seeing this as a twofold approach towards youth engagement. A bit about what we're doing at the Youth Forum is just 3 points, and then I'm done. So we're advocating for a new youth test. This is one of our very big campaigns right now and our very big advocacy efforts, and we actually had some pretty significant wins around this recently. Basically, what we're asking for is that the European Union, in all of its policy-making processes, ensures that the policies that they create do not affect young people in a negative manner. And we have 3 pillars to this youth test. So it's basically applying this test to all of their policies, and it's made up of 3 pillars. The first one, the reason why we're all here and talking about this, meaningful engagement. Meaning that we are advocating for young people to be engaged in the policy-making processes from the very beginning, so from every step. Then the second step, before approving that policy, to have an impact assessment. So to see, once the policy-making process is concluded before approval, to see how that policy would impact young people in the short, medium, and long term. And then last, but definitely not least, because this is what is the make or break of this initiative, mitigation measures. So once young people have been involved in creating the policy, once the impact has been assessed, and if any potential negative consequences have been identified, they should be mitigated. Now, this is not only for the EU, and I see some people taking notes. This can be a very good, and I mean, we already have contenders that have taken up the EU youth test. For example, the European Economic and Social Committee. Recently, one of the commissioners from the European Commission has come out and said that they are looking into implementing the youth test. So our main kind of target body has also taken it up, and they're committed towards doing it. But this can work everywhere where decisions are being made that impact young people. So, for example, universities, this can be applied, and it can be a part of how you make decisions. Something else that we are working towards, and this is one of my core portfolios, it's something I'm very passionate about, and Yorgos was mentioning it earlier as well, is lowering the voting age to 16 years old. Now, when I say that, how many of you feel that that should happen? It's fine if you don't, so don't look around. It's no peer pressure. It's no right or wrong answer. How many of you feel that that's maybe a bit too early to start voting? Again, no right or wrong answer. Okay, so we see that this is a pretty divisive issue, right? And it's perfectly fine for it to be that way, but we're fighting for it to no longer be that way at the Youth Forum. And we're advocating towards EU member states, and not only, to lower the voting age to 16 years old. The main reasoning behind that, and it's not the only one, you can find me in the lunch break and we can have a very in-depth conversation over this, but the main reason behind it is to open up the democratic participation process for more young people, adolescents, and children, because of course we're already going towards that area. I want to talk about voting at 16. And the last point, indeed, we're fighting for more youth representation in politics. This is something that we did 2 years ago. Our lovely staff members in the Youth Forum Secretariat did, which was an analysis of the members of the European Parliament. And in 2022, 6 members of the European Parliament were called Martin, and the same number of people were under 30 in this body. I'm going to let that sink in for a second. It's clear to us, I mean, you really don't need to be a youth researcher or a political researcher to understand that that is true, and it's ubiquitous in every single political space that we find ourselves in. But we're fighting against that. And with our member organizations, our party political member organizations, which are oftentimes the youth constituencies of the political parties, they are members of the Youth Forum, and we're working with them through our manifesto, through our elections manifesto and the Youth Forum, to get more young people on the lists. So for them to actually be represented in parliaments as well. So there's a long way to go, right? And I know this can be maybe a bit disheartening sometimes, but the good news for you is that you're in the right place. So you came here today, you woke up at maybe 9 a.m. to be here on a Monday morning. You're on the right track. Our mission right now, as people who are in this room, maybe because we're privileged, maybe because we just found ourselves at the right moment at the right time, is to take this information and spread it amongst our peers. And I know that's not easy. I know it's so boring to talk about civic engagement oftentimes. But it doesn't have to be a 20-minute presentation. You can just strike up a conversation with them or just have them tag along with you when you go out to vote. And it's really this little domino effect that I'm sure maybe in 5 or 10 years' time will actually be able to fill rooms like these. I'm not a big fan of quotes usually, but this one really stuck with me. I'll give you a moment to read it, and especially that point on the second row, the fraternities of the indifferent who sleep through revolutions. It hurts and it's uncomfortable to acknowledge the fact that we are going through a revolution. It redefines the very core of our society, but we cannot afford, as young people, to be part of this fraternity of the indifferent. We just can't allow it. Thank you.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed this super dynamic section. I enjoyed it a lot, and I will take a little bit more of your time now before going to lunch. Important moment, but also now there will be another super important moment because we will talk with Sabri Ben Roman, who is the communication officer of ESN, about how can mobile students vote from abroad. Actually, this was a topic that was raised in the panel before, and he will present us the voting from abroad wizard. So, welcome on stage.
Okay, hello everyone. I like the idea of being at the center, actually. I really like to be more involved and like this, so I will do this. And I'm really happy to see the people that joined. I know that others are also joining from the live stream. The only thing that I'm very sorry about is that I'm the barrier between you and the lunch break. So you have just to resist a bit more and then we can continue to talk there. But actually, I want to start with a very interesting question, which you will find in the Slido. So if you go there, I'll give you some time to just click, or you can go to the Slido and use the code meetGant. Okay, and then I will go. And the question, do you want me to go back? Okay, so the question is, what is democracy to you? And this is a very important question because as it was mentioned, we have a very important moment which will come up in the 6th of June, which are the elections. We all live in this system called democracy, and to some people this system is about just something that we're born into. To other people it's a value. To other people they are indifferent to it. So I wanted really to see and to understand what this is about for you. So I will start to read some of them, and then maybe I will ask to elaborate a bit more to those that answered this, but I see the big one is about freedom and participation. We have equal rights, but also freedom to be yourself, voices being heard, togetherness. So I want to ask, because I see that this is, something else is popping up. Give people a voice, equal rights and participation. So who answered freedom and would like to just elaborate a few seconds about that? Why democracy is about freedom, or even anything else, huh? You can freely take the floor very briefly and say, to me, this is why it's freedom. I think all of you answered, so I'm going to pick randomly like this. Unless you want to jump in. You. What is democracy to you? Yes, yes, yes. Yes, wait. I will give you the microphone.
I wrote being part of society's decisions, and I think for me that just means that democracy enables me to be an active citizen and to be part of the decisions that my country makes, that my university would have made and my workplace makes and all of that. So for me, that's what it is.
Very good. Anyone else? One more. Let's listen to one more idea from this side maybe. You. You didn't expect me to pick you so manually, huh?
Yeah, I wrote Give People a Voice because, I think a big part of democracy is that everyone technically can have a say in what goes on.
This is very good, okay? Very interesting, but there is one thing that I think it's missing. You are putting a lot of things related to connecting and participating and so on and so forth, but you can raise your hand. Who ever heard of Noam Chomsky? Famous linguist, political analyst. He said, okay, this is all good and fine, but there is one big problem. In order to be part of this democracy properly, you need a people that are informed. Information. You need the system that allows for freedom, and you need people to be informed. And how do you inform people? Chomsky critiqued the fact that people try to control the information, but one thing that I will talk about to you today, and we are already here enacting it, is the presence of places and platforms that allows for knowledge sharing between peers, between experts and learners, and so on. So I want you to really reflect upon this as we proceed, that it is not enough to have the freedom in the system. We need citizens and people that are informed to make informed decisions, and then to understand what are the problems, because this is the big responsibility that we all have within this system called democracy. And so, what are we doing? We are one of the things that we are tackling now with ESN, we started to think about it already in 2022, is that there is a large chunk of people, young people, which are the Erasmus generation, at the very least 300,000 new people every year that are abroad, and even beyond the Erasmus generation, citizens just live abroad, and they have a problem. They don't know that they can access a very important right, which is voting from abroad and acting their basic right of democracy within the democracy. Because I will give you this one, maybe the only correct answer perhaps about democracy, the definition of democracy. Democracy is a system, a political system, where citizens are involved in the key steps of decision making. At the very least, they are involved when it comes to the ballot, the voting. And then you can have more or less of these types of involvement, okay? But if people don't know that they can do it from abroad, then everything falls apart. The idea of Europe, internationalization, people being part of a democratic European society and accessing the most fundamental right from abroad. The most fundamental right. It's not just about visiting other cultures and other cities. It's about us being us as citizens. So you see, we started to reflect on this again on 2022. And we proposed an idea, okay? And we said, okay, we need to put the Erasmus generation in action. And how we do it? We started January 2023. I know some of you already know what happened there, but we started this initiative called Erasmus Generation Action, and we created, guess what? Spaces, places, platform all over Europe. And we invited young people, thanks also to the members of our network, the ESN network. They were the protagonists creating these places. And what happened there? Knowledge sharing, learning, and first of all, and most of all, understanding what are the barriers to EU opportunities, to EU rights? What do people know about it? And we developed a brief, which I'm going to briefly show you later, pun intended. And then in early 2024, we said, okay, now we understand what the issue is. And we're going to see what the issue is. So now it's time to act. And the way we will act is by involving the Erasmus generation and the young people in general leading up to the election, promoting mobility, promoting civic engagement. We don't want people to be scared of going abroad and say, oh, if I go abroad, I'm going to give up on my rights. I'm going to be at a disadvantage. No, we want to prove that this is not the case. And in the situations where that is the case, we're going to show solutions. We're going to show that there are places where these things are being talked about and tackled like we are doing now and today. And this will culminate in very, very important initiatives, maybe one of the most important, which are national policy dialogues happening in around a dozen European countries. And everybody is invited to join here, and also, of course, other people all over Europe, where we're going to create, again, those spaces for civic engagement to show that people can access their rights from abroad and to do knowledge sharing so that we have informed citizens. So, yeah, this is just some basic information. It's supported by the European Parliament, and it's about mobilizing Europe, and those are internationally oriented, and then it's about fostering active citizenship in light of the elections that will happen in June. And there are 3 steps that we are, let's say, the key recipes of this amazing dish. So I use this sort of metaphor, so we prepare ourselves also for the break soon, is that first we learn. Again, knowledge is the basis of democracy, not only having the space to enact it. We learn, we understand, and then we trained people to become change makers and ambassadors at the national level and at the local level. And then now we are actually we are switching now from the share to the act phase gradually. Now, you know, I mean, people are from the network know and also beyond. We are now creating spaces where we are promoting EU opportunities related to mobility, to volunteering, to civic engagement, and more. And finally, we will start with the action, with the call to action. We have a big milestone, a big opportunity coming, which will be basically will dictate the framework of our lives for the next 5 years, which are the European election and therefore the legislature. Okay. So this is interesting. I already wanted to share what we discovered in the learn phase. Okay? There are some pull factors, so pushback factors, and the needs. First of all, why do people go on mobility? Each of us has their own, basically, idea on it. Maybe you want to discover it. Cultures and so on and so forth. What we discovered from all of these ideas coming from Europe is that people go on mobility to engage with new people, to enhance their skills, to develop, again, portfolio, discovering new cultures, and to have more opportunities and academic opportunities. But there is a problem. People don't have information, they have financial constraints, bureaucratic processes, a lack of recognition, for example, of what they study. This is incredible, but it's a big issue. And then, in general, the feeling of having still geographical and cultural barriers. But what are, at the same time, the needs that people have? Not necessarily the pushback, but what do people need? Okay, you want me to go abroad. You want me to access my right to go abroad. It's one of the fundamental rights of being part of the union, which is the freedom of movement. Well, they need information and guidance. Information, knowledge, accommodation support, awareness of promotion, financial support, and so on and so forth. You can read them. And some of them I really want to highlight because people underestimate them. Mental health support. You know, an approach that is holistic, people that can help them at all levels, and so on and so forth. Okay? And so, there are, again, you saw that the recipe was 3 parts, and learn, share, act, but the solution is in 2 parts. On one hand, resources, giving people the tools to learn, to be informed, and then to follow up with the creation of spaces, which we are doing, we are creating with the whole network, spaces where civic engagement is discussed, where mobility is promoted, where EU rights are promoted and discussed, and then I want to stress again the national policy dialogues. So you can stay tuned with that. Now, I think I have to go maybe back to the closer to the computer because I want to show you a bit of these resources. But I will tell you first of all what they are about. The first one is a mobility manual. This looks like a menu. Okay, it's very accessible, looks like a menu, and it gives you all of the different types of mobility promotion event that you can in fact promote based on your resources, based on your capacity, based on your interest. And we already tested this tool, and it worked actually quite nicely. Okay, so we want to show you this first tool, and then another thing that I will show you soon is some of the things that emerged from the local dialogues in the learning phase. And finally, I will show you the big thing, which is the wizard. So basically, it's a tool in the Erasmus Generation portal, erasmusgeneration.org, which showcases the information of all the European states on how you can vote from abroad. If you are a citizen abroad, how can you do it? And it's not only for young people. All citizens can use it. So this is a nice call to action, which is very fundamental. If you have even some friend going on mobility or you know someone living abroad, you can just share this link and they will have the information on how to do it. No, this is for later. So now I'm gonna go here and let's see. Okay. Okay. So this is for later. So this is, okay, just the focus group report. I already showed you the main things that emerged. All of these resources are available in the Erasmus Generation in Action website. It's part of the, let's say, ESN galaxy of tools and platforms. But this, you have the website here. And if you go on in the resources section, we provided tools that can support basically civic engagement in light of the elections which are upcoming. And one of the things here is the main findings of the focus group. We will be adding a new version later, which will include a roadmap, which has more of a political, let's say, impact. But I don't want to delve too much into this. It's pretty straightforward, and we summarize the main findings, the push, the pull factors, and the needs. These are the guidelines, okay? They have, this is the table of content of some of the events that we propose. These are tried and tested, let's say, templates, okay, and formats. This is something that the ESN, it's basically the bread and butter of the Erasmus Generation, of the ESN network, and we know that these things work, and we basically show how to implement it. For example, International Student Night. What is this event about? What is this? Is this a type of event that is aimed at informing people or inspiring them? And who is best placed to attend these sort of events? It will then show you possible activities. It's divided into tier lists, so minimum, average, and maximum. You can decide how big you want to go, and then the steps to make it successful, and some tips. And this will repeat for all sorts of events, for flag parades, also it gives information about the budget for each things and how to make it sustainable, tools that you might need in terms of logistics and communication, and so on. And this, I really urge all, basically the stakeholder representatives of organization, from the national organizations of ESN and beyond, to really take a look at this, because I think this summarizes nicely the best thing that ESN did. This is what ESN started, promoting mobility. And so, especially if you have any feedback, please tell us if you want us to improve it further. And then at the end of this document, we also added an inclusion section, okay, which provides some brief guidelines on inclusion. And again, if you have feedback also on this part, feel free to provide it and we will improve this, okay? Because this will be something very important. If you want to promote going abroad, this is it. Then, okay, this I showed you, this I showed you. The voting from abroad too. Let's do this nice showcase. You just go to the erasmusgeneration.org and we gave it a nice big highlight basically in the homepage here in the header. Check out how you can vote, or on the top right, okay? When you click here, you will find a list of countries, and the first information that it will give you on the top is whether for that country you can vote by proxy. That is to say, you send someone to vote in your place, electronically, by post, or from embassy, which is what most people would do. And so, with the X, it means no. A V means yes. A check means yes, you can vote it. So, if I go, for example, I don't know, let's go to Italy, because I'm from Italy. Okay, I'm biased. It will give you, first of all, some basic information about the country, which comes from other information which are available on the website, so they are gathered here. And then you have testimonials about the mobility, which is aimed at promoting, like, what are people saying about going to Italy, and then it tells you information, currency, language, population, and so on. And finally, it tells you how can you vote from abroad. Okay? If it's not available, it will tell you. If it's available, for example, I want to vote from the embassy, very basic. I will click Learn How, and it will nicely tell you very basic information, very summarized, very accessible, what is needed. And then if you want more information, you go to the link, and it will open the official website of the country. Okay? This is information about the European Parliament elections for that country, if there's anything specific to know, when the vote happens, and so on. And then if there is any national specific page dedicated to the parliamentary elections, you will find it. Okay? And this is for all countries. So you see that we really wanted to keep things concrete. If you go down, you will also find some latest activities that took part in that country, and then that's it. It's direct. It's aimed at being very practical. Let's see, let me go back first of all to the presentation. No, I have to open the full page. Perfect. It's very practical. It's very much aimed at the action, and it's very much aimed at giving each and every one of you and everyone who wants to promote mobility and civic engagement and having things to do for the upcoming elections to have tools that every one of us can use. Okay? So I wanted to, this one we showed, this one is showcased. No, I started from the beginning, okay. Am I going back? Ah, this is why. Okay. Okay. So I wanted to take a moment, rather than going through the focus groups report, to check some of the things that were said. Maybe you can relate to this, and then maybe as we gradually go in the lunch break, you can even think about it while we eat, or we can discuss about it. These are some of the quotes, the voice. Again, what the Youth Forum said here. We need to listen to each and every young person. Now, it's hard, huh? You need to have tools to do that, because it's millions and millions of young people. But with these spaces, we tried it, okay? We tried it. And so what are some of the things that emerged? It doesn't matter if it's bigger or smaller, right? It doesn't mean that it's more or less important. It's just formatting. But for example, people said, I did not have a clue about the possibility of voting in local elections because it didn't sound right. Can you imagine? It didn't sound right. And yet that is a possibility for many countries. Other people, you can read the bigger ones, but I will read the smaller ones. I had to submit so much paperwork, which was not specified in the general rules of the exchange admission. Again, lack of information and more. Hearing from high school professors about Erasmus Plus acted as a motivation boost to undertake mobility once enrolled in a higher education institution, for example, university, and more. Our pre-departure meeting, organized by our international office, was very chaotic because there were a lot of us and we didn't get enough space to get properly informed. This is to give you really a feeling of what are the issues that people face on the ground when it comes to mobility promotion. And then I chose the host country to have a chance to learn the language spoken there. My home institution did not really offer a full list of our rights as mobile EU students, but my hosting institution provided us with one. So a lot of lack of information, a lot of processes that people find problematic, and so on and so forth. So it's important. I want to really, before we go to the lunch break, start to wrap up on this note. We discussed about the need to have, let alone more funds. We need to, first of all, secure the funds that we have now at the institutional level. We already said that we need to inform people, okay? But and this is the most important, one of the key things to do. When we have those money, when we advocate to have those resources, when we have people that are informed, what do we do? And so there was something that was mentioned previously by our friends from the Youth Forum, and that was, sometimes it's boring to get engaged. Sometimes we don't want to do it. I want to challenge that. I challenge you publicly, you know. What is the challenge? It's very easy. Each and every one of us has something that they care about. Each and every one of us. It's impossible. And that's the thing that keeps you up at night, not just maybe scrolling Instagram. Okay, scrolling Instagram. How do you ensure that the information there is good? How do you ensure that what you're looking at is nice? You know, and so on and so forth. What about the fact that these tools, for example, are controlled by private organizations and companies, and today social media, for example, is the new public square. People talk there. So how about having rights there, and so on and so forth? What you are passionate about, whatever that is, what you don't get bored of doing after work or after studying, that's simply what you should be engaged about. And it can be as simple as being informed about it, or it can be more, like volunteering on it, and so on and so forth. And this is something that we should keep in mind as we approach the elections, because this is really, I don't say one on a lifetime opportunity. It happens every 5 years. But in 5 years, today the world is very fast, ultra rapid, and a lot of things can happen. So my ending message for all of you, and I think this is the end, again I was doing it. Yes, my ending message to you is to hopefully enjoy the food that is available. I know I talked a lot, but I hope that you learned and you're going to take a lot of stuff from this. And I really, as a call to action, ask you to be tuned for the upcoming national policy dialogues and to visit our websites to find those resources that you can use for you. And enjoy your lunch.
Thank you so much, Sabri. So before going to lunch, just one quick reminder for you. Here is written not only lunch, but also gallery walk. So you'll be able to actually have a gallery and to see like all the amazing projects that ESN has been carried out till now, and also all the ongoing projects. So I share with you also what had been said before. So don't be afraid to engage between each other, talk, and let's see each other back at 2:30. Enjoy your lunch. Okay, so sorry, another small announcement for all the people who are lactose intolerant, gluten-free, vegan, vegetarian, any other thing, please tell the catering and they will show you what type of lunch to prepare for you. Thank you so much. It's cold. I'm feeling cold. Do you feel cold? No. I'm feeling my nose. It's red.